Chapter 11, Part 3 of The Mysteries of Paris, Volume 5, by Eugène Sue. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Gringolet and Cut in Half, Part 3. "We shall hear the end of the story," said the Skeleton, breathless with suppressed rage. Then adding in a whisper to Gros Boiteux, "Follow him to the door, and, when you see him leave the yard, cry 'Gargousse,' and the informer is a dead man." "All right," said Le Gros Boiteux, who accompanied the guardian, and remained at the door watching his steps as he went away. "I tell you, then," resumed Pique Vinaigre, "that Gringolet, during the whole time of his triumph, said, 'Little flies I have.'" "Gargousse!" cried Gros Boiteux, as the turnkey quitted the yard. "I'm here, Gringolet, and I will be your spider!" cried the Skeleton instantly, and darting so suddenly on Germain that he could not make a struggle or utter a cry. His voice expired under the tremendous gripe of the Skeleton's iron fingers. "If you are the spider, I'm the golden fly, skeleton of evil!" cried a voice at the moment when Germain, surprised at the violent and sudden attack of his implacable enemy, had fallen back on the bench entirely at the mercy of the ruffian, who, with his knee on his breast, held him by the neck. "Yes, I will be the fly, and a fly of the right sort," repeated the man in the blue cap, of whom we have already spoken, and then, with a fierce spring, he dashed upon the Skeleton, and assailed him on the skull and between his eyes with a shower of blows from his fist, so tremendous that it sounded like the noise of a smith's hammer ringing on an anvil. The man in the blue cap, who was no other than the Chourineur, added, as he redoubled the quickness of his hammering on the Skeleton's head, "It is the shower of blows which M. Rodolphe drummed on my sconce, and I have recollected them." At this unexpected assault the prisoners were all struck with surprise, and did not take part either for or against the Chourineur. Several of them, still under the influence of the salutary impression made on them by Pique Vinaigre's story, were even glad of an event which saved Germain. The Skeleton staggered at first, and, reeling like an ox under the butcher's poleaxe, mechanically extended his hands to try and ward off his adversary's blows, and Germain, thus freed from the deadly clutch of the Skeleton, half raised himself. "What does this mean? Who is this scoundrel?" exclaimed Le Gros Boiteux, and, rushing at the Chourineur, he endeavoured to seize his arms from behind, whilst the latter was making violent efforts to keep the Skeleton down on the bench. Germain's defender replied to Le Gros Boiteux's attack by a kind of kick, so violent that it sent the cripple rolling on the ground to the farther end of the circle formed by the prisoners. Germain, whose face was livid and purple, half suffocated, and on his knees by the bench, seemed unconscious of all that was passing around him. The strangulation had been so violent that he could scarcely breathe. After his first surprise was over, the Skeleton, by a desperate effort, contrived to keep the Chourineur off and regain his feet. Breathless, drunk with rage and hatred, he was fearful to look upon. His cadaverous face streamed with blood, his upper lip curled like that of a furious wolf, exposed his teeth clenched against each other. At last he exclaimed, in a voice palpitating with anger and exertion, for his struggle had been very violent, "Stab him, the ruffian, you cowards, who let me be traitorously attacked, or the informer will escape." During this momentary truce, the Chourineur, raising Germain half fainting, had managed very cleverly to put him in an angle of the wall, and, availing himself of this advantageous position of defence, he was able, without fear of surprise from behind, to resist any attack of the prisoners, on whom the skill and herculean powers he had displayed had imposed considerable respect. Pique Vinaigre, greatly alarmed, had disappeared without his absence being remarked. Seeing hesitation amongst the majority of prisoners, the Skeleton exclaimed, "Aid me now, let us do for both, the big 'un as well as the little 'un." "Look out for squalls, then," replied the Chourineur, preparing for a struggle, with his two hands squared, and standing well balanced on his loins; "and mind your eyes, Skeleton. If you mean to play the Cut in Half, I'll serve you as Gargousse did, and slit your weasand." "Fall on him!" said Le Gros Boiteux, getting up. "Why does this vagabond defend spies? Death to the informer, and to him, too! If he defends Germain, he is a traitor. Yes, yes, death to the spy! Death!" "Yes, and death to the traitor who defends him!" Such were the cries uttered by the fiercest of the détenus. Another party, more merciful, exclaimed, "No, let's hear him first." "Yes, let him explain. We mustn't kill a man without a hearing." "And without means of defence, too. Must we be cut in halves?" "So much the better," replied the Skeleton's partisans. "Nothing's too bad for a spy." "Let's fall on him. Let us support the Skeleton." "Yes, let's at the Blue Cap." "No, let's support the Blue Cap, and let's at the Skeleton," retorted the Chourineur's party. "No, down with the Blue Cap." "Down with the Skeleton." "Well done, my boys!" cried the Chourineur, addressing the prisoners who sided with him. "You're good fellows, and would not massacre a half-dead man. None but cowards would do that. The Skeleton does not care what evil he does. He is sentenced beforehand, and that is why he urges you on. But if you help to kill Germain, you will be severely punished for it. Besides, I have something to propose." "The Skeleton is desirous of doing for this young man. Well, let him come and take him if he thinks he has the pluck to do it. Let us two settle it. Leave us to ourselves, and see what turns up. But he's afraid. He's like Cut in Half, only strong with the weak." The vigour, energy, and rough manner of the Chourineur had powerful effect on the prisoners, and a considerable number of them had ranged themselves on his side and surrounded Germain, whilst the Skeleton's party drew around that ruffian. A bloody fray would have ensued, when there was heard in the yard the sonorous and measured tread of a piquet of infantry, always on guard in the prison. Pique Vinaigre, profiting by the general stir and noise, had gained the yard, and, having knocked at the wicket of the entrance, had told the turnkeys what was passing in the day room. The arrival of the soldiers put an end to this scene. Germain, the Skeleton, and the Chourineur were taken before the governor of La Force. The first to make his complaint, the two others to answer for creating a disturbance inside the gaol. The fright and suffering of Germain had been so great, his weakness so extreme, that he was obliged to lean on two of the turnkeys, in order to reach a chamber next to the governor's room. There he was very ill. His neck, excoriated as it was, bore the livid and bleeding imprint of the Skeleton's iron grasp. A few minutes more, and Rigolette's betrothed would have been strangled. The turnkey, who had taken an interest in Germain, gave him first assistance. When he had recovered, his first thought was of his deliverer. "Thanks for your kind cares, sir," he said to the turnkey; "but for that brave man I must have been killed. Where is he?" "In the governor's room, telling him how the disturbance arose. It appears that but for him—" "I must have been killed. Oh, tell me his name. Who is he?" "His name I do not know, but they call him the Chourineur. He is an old offender." "And is his crime now very serious?" "Very. Burglary in the night in an inhabited house," replied the turnkey. "He will probably have a similar dose to Pique Vinaigre, 15 or 20 years of hard labour." Germain shuddered. He would have preferred being bound by gratitude to a man less criminal. "How dreadful!" he said. "And yet this man, without knowing me, defended me. Such courage, such generosity!" "Ah, these men have sometimes a touch of good. The main point is that you are saved. To morrow you will have your private cell, and to night you will sleep in the infirmary. So courage, sir. The bad time is over. And when your pretty little visitor comes to see you, you can comfort her, for once in a cell you have nothing to fear. Only you will do wisely, I think, not to tell her of this affair." "Certainly not, but I should like to thank my defender." "I have just been leaving the governor, who will now interrogate the Skeleton, and I shall take them both, the Skeleton to his dungeon directly, and the Chourineur to the Fosse aux Lions. He will be, besides, somewhat rewarded for what he has done for you. As he is a determined and stout fellow, he will probably replace the Skeleton as captain of the ward." The Chourineur, having crossed a small passage from the governor's apartment, entered the room in which Germain was. "Wait for me here," said the turnkey to the Chourineur. "I will go and ask the governor what he decides upon as to the Skeleton, and I will return and let you know. Our young man has quite recovered, and wishes to thank you, and so he should, for otherwise it would have been all over with him." And the turnkey went out. The Chourineur's countenance was very joyous, and he advanced towards Germain, saying, with a cheerful air, "Thunder, how glad I am, how glad I saved you!" And he extended his hand to Germain, who, by a feeling of involuntary repulsion, withdrew somewhat, instead of taking the hand which the Chourineur offered to him. Then, remembering that he owed his life to this man, he was desirous of repairing this display of repugnance. But the Chourineur perceived it. His features became overcast, and, retreating in his turn, he said, with bitter sorrow, "Oh, it is right. Your pardon, sir." "No, it is I who ought to ask your pardon. I am not a prisoner like yourself. Ought I not to think of the service you have rendered me? You have saved my life. Your hand, sir, I beg, I entreat, your hand." "Thanks, but it is useless now. The first feeling is everything. If you had directly given me a grasp of the hand it would have afforded me pleasure, but when I reflect I would not desire it. Not because I am a prisoner like you," he added with a sombre and hesitating air, "because, before I came here, I have been " "The turnkey told me all," said Germain, interrupting him. "But yet you saved my life." "I have done no more than my duty and pleasure, for I know who you are, M. Germain." "You know me?" "A little, my lad," said the Chourineur, resuming his usual tone of habitual carelessness, "and, pardieu, you would have been very wrong to have attributed my arrival at La Force to chance. If I had not known you, I should not have been in prison." Germain looked at the Chourineur with amazement. "What! It was because you knew me?" "That I am here a prisoner in La Force." "I, who owe you " "A candle to the Virgin for having procured me the advantage of being in La Force." "Really," said Germain, passing his hand over his brow, "I do not know whether the terrible shock I have just undergone has weakened my senses, but it is impossible for me to understand you." "The turnkey told me you were here under a charge of," said Germain, with hesitation. "Robbery, pardieu! And robbery with forcible entry, and, moreover, at night. Nothing could be more complete!" cried the Chourineur, with a hearty laugh. Germain, painfully excited at the bold hardihood of the Chourineur, could not forbear saying to him, "What, you, so brave, so generous, and speak in this way? Are you not aware of the terrible punishment to which you are exposed?" "20 years at the galleys, I know that. I am an out and out scoundrel, I know that, for taking it so easy. But what's the use when one has been and done it? And then for me to say that it was you, M. Germain," added the Chourineur, heaving a tremendous sigh, and with an air of assumed contrition, "who are the cause of my misfortune." "When you explain yourself more clearly I shall understand you. Just as much as you please, but my gratitude for the service you have rendered me will never cease or diminish," added Germain, sorrowfully. "Oh, pardon me, M. Germain," replied the Chourineur, becoming serious. "You do not like to see me laugh at this. Do not let us add another word. I must let all out with you, and so, perhaps, force you to shake my hand." "I have no doubt of that, for, in spite of the crime of which you are accused, and of which you accuse yourself, all in you bespeaks so much courage and frankness that I am convinced you are charged unjustly. Strong suspicions may exist, but I am sure that is all." "Oh, as to that you are mistaken, M. Germain," said the Chourineur, hastily, "on my word as a man, and as true as I have a protector." The Chourineur took off his cap. "Who is more than all the world to me. I robbed at night by forcing the shutter, and was caught in the fact and deprived of all I was endeavouring to carry off." "But hunger, pushed you to such an extremity." "Hunger! I had 120 francs when they apprehended me, the remains of a note of 1,000 francs, without including the protector I have mentioned to you, who, by the way, does not know that I am here, but will not let me want for anything. Since, however, I have mentioned him to you, you must suppose I am in earnest, for you must know that he is a man to go on your knees before. So I must tell you, too, that the shower of blows which I drummed on the Skeleton's sconce was a sketch after his style, copied from nature. The idea of the robbery was on his account; and, in fact, if you were not strangled by the Skeleton, it is through him." "But this protector " "Is yours also." "Mine?" "Yes, M. Rodolph protects you. When I say monsieur, I should say monseigneur, for he is at least a prince; but I have a habit of calling him M. Rodolph, which he permits me to do." "You are under some mistake," said Germain, more and more surprised. "I do not know the prince." "Yes, but he knows you. You don't believe it? Well, that's possible, for that's his way. He knows that there is some worthy fellow in trouble, and then, in an instant, the good fellow is comforted, and without being seen or known, he is at work, and kindness falls from the skies, like a tile from a house on your head. So patience, and one day or other you will have your tile." "Really, what you say amazes me." "And you'll have a great deal more to amaze you yet. To return to my protector. Some time ago, after a service which he persisted I had done him, he procured me a splendid position, I need not say where, or any more about it, for it would be a long tale to tell. Well, he sends me to Marseilles to embark and go to a capital appointment in Algeria. I left Paris as happy as a child, but all of a sudden a change comes over me." "That was singular." "Why, you must know that once separated from M. Rodolph I was uneasy, disturbed, as fidgety as a dog who has lost his master. It was very stupid, but so are dogs, sometimes, but that does not prevent them from being at least attached, and as well mindful of the nice bits given them as of the thumps and kicks they have had, and M. Rodolph had given me many nice bits, and, in truth, M. Rodolph is everything to me. From being a riotous, dare-devil, good-for-nothing blackguard, he made an honest man of me by only saying 2 words, just for all the world, like magic." "What were the words he said?" "He said I had still heart and honour, although I have been at the galleys, not for having stolen it, it's true, never that, but what perhaps is worse, for having killed, yes," said the Chourineur, in a gloomy tone, "killed in a moment of passion, because formerly growing up like a brute beast, or rather as a vagabond, without father or mother, and left abandoned in the streets of Paris, I knew neither God nor devil, neither good nor evil. Sometimes the blood mounted to my eyes, and I saw red, and if I had a knife in my hands I slashed and hacked. I was a real savage, a beast, and only lived amongst thieves and scoundrels. I was in the mud, and in the mud I lived as well as I could. But when M. Rodolph said to me that since, in spite of the contempt of all the world and my misery, instead of plundering like others I had preferred working as long as I could, and for what I could, that showed I had still heart and honour. Thunder! You see these 2 words had the same effect on me as if I had been seized by the hair of my head and lifted 1,000 feet into the air above the vermin with whom I dwelt, and showed me the filth in which my life was spent. So I said, 'Thank ye, I've had enough of this.' Then my heart beat with something else besides anger, and I took an oath to myself always to preserve that honour which M. Rodolph spoke of. You see, M. Germain, that when M. Rodolph told me so kindly that I was not so bad as I believed myself to be, that encouraged me, and, thanks to him, I became better than I had been." When he heard this language, Germain comprehended less and less how the Chourineur had committed the robbery of which he accused himself. "No," he said to himself, "it is impossible. The man who was so exalted at the 2 words honour and heart could not have committed the robbery of which he talks with so much self-complacency." The Chourineur continued, without remarking the astonishment of Germain. "To say the truth, what made me be like a dog to his master to M. Rodolph was that he raised me in my own opinion. Before I knew him I never felt but on my skin, but he moved me inwardly, and to the bottom of my heart. Once away from him and the place he inhabited, I felt like a body without a soul. In proportion, as I proceeded farther, I said to myself, 'He leads such a strange life, mixes with such scamps, I can answer for that he risks his body 20 times a day, and under some such circumstances I may be his dog and defend my master, for I am strong in the jaws.' But then he said to me, 'My good fellow, you must become useful to others, therefore go where you can be serviceable.' I was very near replying, 'I have no one to serve but you, M. Rodolph,' but I daren't. He said to me, 'Go,' and I went, and I have gone as far as I could; but, thunder! when I ought to have gone on board the ship, left France, and put the sea between M. Rodolph and myself, I had not the courage. He had desired his correspondent to give me a great lump of money when I sailed, so I went to the gentleman and said to him, 'Sir, I can't do it. I'd rather do anything, so please to give me enough to pay my journey on foot. I have good legs, and I will return to Paris, for I cannot leave France.' Rodolph will be angry, and perhaps refuse to see me, that's possible; but I shall see him, know where he is, and if he goes on as usual, sooner or later I may, perhaps, arrive in time to come between him and a stab with a knife, and then I really cannot go so far away from him. Something I cannot account for attracts me to his side. Well, they gave me sufficient to pay my way, and I reached Paris. Then I really was frightened. What could I say to M. Rodolph to excuse myself? But after all, he would not eat me up, so I went to find his friend, a tall, bald-headed man, but a right sort of fellow as ever broke bread. When I saw M. Murphy, I said, now my fate will be decided, and my throat was dry, and my heart beat such a pace. I expected to catch it pretty handsomely, but what d'ye think? Why, the worthy gentleman received me just as if we had only parted the previous evening, and told me that M. Rodolph, instead of being angry, wished to see me as soon as possible. Well, so I went at once to my protector, him with such a stout fist and a good heart; and when I was face to face with him who is as terrible as a lion and as gentle as a child, he who is a prince, and yet puts on a blouse like me, and once on a time, I bless the day or night rather, laid on me such a shower of blows that I saw nothing but fire, why, M. Germain, when I reflected on all the agreeable qualities he is master of, I felt completely overcome, and I snivelled like a woman. Well, instead of laughing at me, for I must be a rum-looking lot when I pipe my eye, M. Rodolph said to me seriously, "Here you are back again, my good fellow, eh?" "Yes, M. Rodolph, and pray excuse me if I have done wrong, but I could not help it." "Give me some corner in your courtyard, give me a crust and a glass, or let me earn it here, that's all I ask, and pray don't be angry with me for coming back." "So far from it, my man, you have come back just in time to do me a service." "I, M. Rodolph? Is that possible? Well, there must have been something above, for if not, how could I explain how it was I must come back here at the very moment when you wanted me? What can I do for you, M. Rodolph?" "An honest, worthy young man, in whom I take the interest I should do in a son, has been unjustly accused of robbery, and is a prisoner in La Force. His name is Germain. He is of a gentle, quiet disposition. The wretches with whom he is confined have conceived a great aversion for him, and he is in great danger. You unfortunately have known what a prison life is, and a great many prisoners. Could not you, in case there may be any of your old companions in La Force, we will find that out, go and see them, and, by promises of money, which shall be duly performed, induce them to protect this unfortunate young man?" "But who can this generous and unknown man be, who takes so much interest in my fate?" asked Germain, more and more surprised. "You will learn, perhaps, hereafter. As for me, I do not know. To return to my conversation with M. Rodolph. Whilst he was speaking to me there came an idea into my head, so curious, so whimsical, that I could not forbear laughing outright before him. 'What is it, my lad?' said he. 'Why, M. Rodolph, I laugh because I am so happy, and I am happy because I have the means of putting your Mr. Germain quite safe from any ill will on the part of the prisoners, of giving him a protector who will defend him boldly, for when once the young fellow is under the care of the man I mean, not one will dare look at him impertinently.' 'Very good. One of your old comrades, no doubt?' 'Exactly so, M. Rodolph. He has been in La Force some days, that I know; but I must have some money. How much shall you require? A note for 1,000 francs? Here it is. Thank ye, M. Rodolph. In 2 days you will have some news.' 'I begin to understand, or rather, I'm afraid to understand,' exclaimed Germain. 'To come and protect me in this prison you have, perhaps, committed a robbery? Oh, what remorse will beset all my life!' 'Hold hard. M. Rodolph had said I had heart and honour. These words are my law, you must know; and he may still say it to me, for if I am no better than I was before, at least I am no worse.' 'But this robbery, if you have not committed it, why are you here?' 'Listen. There is a capital joke with my 1,000 francs. I bought myself a black wig, shaved my whiskers, put on blue spectacles, bent my head on one side, and made up my back as if it were humped, and then went in search of 2 apartments to let, on the ground floor, in a bustling part of the city. I found what I looked for in the Rue de Provence, and paid a month in advance, under the name of M. Grégoire. Next day I went to the Temple to buy furniture for my 2 rooms, with my black wig, my hump, and blue glasses, so that I might be easily recognized. Well, I sent the goods to the Rue de Provence, and, moreover, 6 silver spoons, which I bought in the Boulevard St. Denis, still disguised with my hump. I returned them to arrange all my affairs in my residence. I told the porter I should not sleep there until the following night, and took away my key. The windows of the 2 rooms were closed with strong shutters. Before I went away I had purposely left one with the bolt undrawn. The night came, and I put off my wig, my spectacles, my hump, and the clothes in which I had made my purchases and hired my apartments, putting this suit in a portmanteau, which I forwarded to M. Murphy, M. Rodolph's friend, begging him to take care of it for me. I then bought this blouse and the blue cotton cap and a bar of iron 2 feet long; and at 1 o'clock in the morning I went into the Rue de Provence, where I lurked about before my lodging, awaiting the moment when the patrol would pass and prevent my robbing myself, committing a burglary on my own premises, in order to be caught and apprehended." And the Chourineur burst into a fit of hearty laughter. "I begin to understand," cried Germain. "But I was nearly getting in a fix, for no patrol passed. I might have robbed myself 20 times with the greatest ease and safety. At last, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard the tread of the soldier boys, and then I pushed open the window, jumped into the room, pocketed the silver spoons and some other trifles. Fortunately the lively patrol had heard the smash of the windows, and just as I leaped out of the window they laid hands upon me. They knocked at the door, which the porter opened. They sent for the sergeant of police, who came. The porter told him that the 2 rooms had been hired that morning by a hump-backed gentleman, with black hair and blue spectacles, whose name was Grégoire. I had the thick head of hair which you now see, and my eyes were as wide open as a hare's on the watch, was as upright as a Russian sentinel, and could not be taken for a humped-backed gentleman, with blue glasses and black hair. I confessed all, and was conducted to the station, and from the station to this prison, where I arrived in the nick of time to snatch from the clutch of the Skeleton the young man of whom M. Rodolph had said to me, 'I am interested in him as much as if he were my own son.'" "What do I not owe you for such devotion?" "Not to me. You owe it to M. Rodolph." "But whence arises his interest in me?" "That is for him to tell you, or, perhaps, he will not tell you, for he very often chooses to do good, and if you ask him why, he will not let you know." "M. Rodolph, then, knows you are here?" "I'm not such a fool as to tell him my plans. Perhaps he would not have consented to my whim, and really, I must say it was capital." "But what risks you have run, indeed still run!" "Oh, what risk? I might not have been brought to La Force, that was the worst risk; but I relied on M. Rodolph's interest to have my prison changed, so that I might have got to you." "But at your trial?" "Well, I shall beg M. Murphy to send me the portmanteau. Before the judge I shall appear in my black wig, blue spectacles, and hump, and shall be again M. Grégoire for the porter who let me the chambers and the tradespeople who sold me the goods. So much for the robbery. If they wish to see the thief again, I'll put off my suit, and then it will be as clear as daylight that the robber and the robbed together only make a total of the Chourineur and no more." "And what the devil would you expect when it is proved that I robbed myself?" "Why, indeed," said Germain, more assured; "but since you take so much interest in me, why did you not speak to me when you first came into the prison?" "I knew instantly of the scheme against you by the prisoners, and I might have denounced them before Pique Vinaigre began or ended his story; but to denounce such ruffians did not suit my ideas. I preferred trusting only to my fist in order to snatch you from the clutch of the Skeleton; and when I saw that scoundrel I said to myself, 'This is a fine opportunity for putting in practice that shower of blows to which I owe the honour of M. Rodolph's acquaintance.'" "But if all the prisoners had taken part against you alone, what could you have done?" "Why, then, I should have shrieked like an eagle, and called lustily for help. But I preferred having my little affair all to myself, that I might be able to say to M. Rodolph, 'I was all alone in the matter.' I have defended and will defend your friend, Be easy on that subject." At this moment the turnkey suddenly returned to the apartment. "M. Germain, go to the governor. He wishes to speak to you immediately. And you, Chourineur, go down into the Fosse aux Lions. You are to be prévôt, if you like, for you have all the qualifications for that duty, and the prisoners will not joke with a man of your sort." "It is all the same to me. I'd as soon be captain as private." "Will you refuse my hand now?" said Germain, cordially. "Ma foi, no, M. Germain. I'll shake hands with all my heart." "We shall see one another again, for I am now under your protection. I shall have nothing more to fear, and shall, therefore, come down every day from my cell into the yard." "Make yourself quite easy on that score. But now I think of it, write a line to M. Rodolph, who will then no longer be uneasy about you, and will also learn that I am here for a good reason, for if he were to hear that I had committed a robbery and did not know all the real facts, thunder! That would not do by any means." "Make your mind easy. I will write this very evening to my unknown protector. Once more, good bye, and thanks most heartily, my worthy friend." "Good bye, M. Germain. I must return to those scoundrels, and I'll make them go right; if not, let them look out for squalls." "When I reflect that it is on my account that you must remain some time longer with these wretches—" "What consequence is that? There is no fear of their turning on me." And the Chourineur followed the turnkey. Germain went to the governor. What was his surprise to find Rigolette there, pale, agitated, and her eyes bathed in tears, and yet smiling through her tears, her countenance expressing unutterable happiness. "I have good news for you, sir," said the governor to Germain. "Justice has declared that no prosecution can be instituted against you; and, in consequence of the withdrawing of this, and explanations that have taken place, I have received an order to set you at liberty immediately." "Sir, what do you say? Can it be possible?" Rigolette tried to speak, but her extreme emotion prevented her, and she could only make an affirmative sign to Germain with her head and clasp her hands. "Mademoiselle arrived a few minutes after I had received the order to set you at liberty," added the governor. "A very powerful letter of recommendation which she brought to me informed me of the touching devotion she had shown to you in prison; and it is with extreme pleasure that I sent for you, certain that you will be very happy to offer your arm to mademoiselle and lead her hence." "A dream! It must be a dream!" said Germain. "Ah, sir, how can I thank you?" "Excuse my astonishment; joy prevents me from thanking you as I ought." "And I, too, M. Germain, I cannot find a word to say," said Rigolette. "Only imagine my delight when I left you on finding the friend of M. Rodolph, who was waiting for me." "Again M. Rodolph!" exclaimed Germain, astonished. "Yes, and M. Murphy said to me, 'Germain is free; here is a letter for the governor of the prison. When you arrive there he will have received the order for Germain's release, and you may take him away with you.' I could not believe what I heard, and yet it was true. Well, as quick as possible I took a hackney coach and came here. It is waiting for us at the gate." We will not attempt to paint the delight of the two lovers when they quitted La Force, and the evening they passed together in Rigolette's small apartment, which Germain quitted at 11 o'clock to go to a humble furnished room. End of Chapter 11. End of The Mysteries of Paris, Volume 5, by Eugène Sue. Recorded by Celine Major.